Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Wayne County Chambers podcast, For the Record. We want to say a special thank you to our sponsors, Sport Durst of Goldsboro, Goldsboro Builders Supply, and Professional Data Management. The Sport Durst team is ready to get you into a beautiful new Volkswagen. Offering open and honest pricing on every vehicle and service, Sport Durst of Goldsboro understands the value of your time and dollars. Providing quality building materials since 1953, Goldsboro Builders Supply is your premier destination for custom designs and excellent service to builders and contractors in Wayne County and surrounding areas. Professional Data Management offers specialized service and technologies designed to help you gain maximum reimbursements for the valuable services that your office provides. Another huge thank you to our in-kind sponsors, Daniels Furniture, University Lights of Goldsboro, and Johnson Carpet One, who together worked hard to make our beautiful podcast set what you see today. And for the record, we're glad you're here.
Miss Patricia Beier.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, my goodness.
How are you?
I'm good. Just out here trying to make it on these streets.
I understand.
I like to tell people I bob and weave, just staying alive. That's it. Well, it is so good to have you on For the Record, our podcast.
It's great to be here.
Yeah. Now, I've seen you from a distance for a long time, gotten to know you a little bit better over the course of my time in Wayne County, but I'm really excited about learning more about you today.
I'm excited to be here and share more.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about you. First of all, you're the director. Give us your title.
Okay, so my official title is the Chief Executive Officer for Wayne Action Greek for Economic Solvency, also known as Wages.
Yeah.
That's my title.
That's a mouthful.
It is.
I bet it feels that way too.
It does.
That's good. That's good. So how did you get to Wages? Like, tell us the background. Like, where did you come from? How did you get here?
I came right from here, right? So I came right from here. Ironically, I'm from Goldsboro, but I went to Wages Head Start as a child.
Okay.
So I tell people all the time that my first experience with Wages was like 40-some years ago. And they say, oh, God, you look really, really good. I was like, yeah, I was 4, right? So that's my first experience. I'm born and raised here in Goldsboro. Went to Goldsboro High School. And so went to college and came back home. And
Where'd you go to college?
I went to North Carolina Wesleyan.
Oh, nice.
Started off at Barton, which was Atlantic Christian College, I think, still then. No, it was Barton at that point. And so, and then went to Wesleyan and finished and then came back home. And could not find, it was like the mid to late 90s, could not find a job necessarily in my field. So I had to go to the Department of Correction. My father had a fit, but I went to the Department of Correction because I needed experience. All the jobs, apparently everybody in Wayne County was coming back at that time with some kind of education. And so the social work jobs and the things that I was looking for were filled. And so I went for 1 year to the Department of Correction and worked there, and then applied for several jobs and got offered all of them. I applied for 4 here in Wayne County. I won't talk about the other 3 that I applied to, but I chose Wages because it was so familiar, I think, to my family. And I knew about it, didn't know a lot about the rest. I mean, I was 23, 24, fresh out of college, except for that 1 year. And so I chose Wages, and so that is where I have been ever since. Started as a social worker there. And then was the director for children and families for the most of my tenure there. And for the last 7 years, I've been the chief executive officer.
Okay. And you tell us about your family a little bit, if you don't mind.
So, again, I'm one of 4 children born here in Wayne County. My parents had 4 girls in 5 years.
Your poor dad. My
poor dad. I'm the oldest of 4 girls. Born here right in Goldsboro. My mother is from northern Wayne County. And so I always tell everybody we all went to Head Start and we all eventually went to college and are all in the helping fields. My sister's in teaching and social work and nursing and things of that nature. And I also have 4 children and super excited about that. And one is still in Wayne County schools. One goes to Wayne Community. One is a young attorney. Yes, all of them finished from Wayne County Public Schools. And so very excited about that. And that's pretty much who I am. I love my family. I love the work that we do. I always tell people that chief executive officer may be my official title, but I am always going to be a social worker at heart.
Okay.
And I love social work and I love human services and what we do for the community and what all of those in those helping fields do for the community.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about wages. What is it?
It is a community action agency. We are one of about 1,000 community action agencies across the nation. All began in the mid-1960s as part of President Johnson's War on Poverty. Wages has been around since 1966 and actually was founded on this road right here on William Street.
Oh.
A little house right here on William, not
really
adjacent to this campus, close to this campus.
That's cool.
And so that's where Wages started in 1966. And so Wages will celebrate 60 years in Wayne County in a couple of years, right? And so that's really, really great. We've expanded a lot. Now we're a regional organization, again, started in Wayne County, headquartered in Wayne County. But we now have offices in Pitt and also Wilson counties. We serve 7 counties here in eastern North Carolina. And so really excited. So we provide services related to housing, energy efficiency. We address food insecurity with our Meals on Wheels program and our congregate meals for seniors. We have the second largest Head Start program, single county Head Start program in the state of North Carolina. We also work a lot with seniors, with volunteers, workforce development. We're getting more into housing. I'm very excited about that because that is such a need in our community. So Wages exist to discover the reasons for poverty in our community, but then also to find solutions to address those issues. And our vision is that everyone has the opportunity to achieve their optimal potential. And that's everyone from the newborn baby that we serve to the 106-year-old who gets Meals on Wheels. That's our vision. And so to that end, those are the types of programs and services that we provide, but also advocacy for those who are experiencing, economic instability or injustice in any way or any kind of disparity. So that's what we exist to provide services and programs and offer solutions, but also advocacy.
Well, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
I mean, that is a lot of ground covered, I think. So people have probably heard of Meals on Wheels. And that started right out of you guys.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yes.
I know you're proud of that.
We are very proud of Meals on Wheels. Proud of all of the programs.
I mean, in Wayne County, how many families are served?
On the Meals on Wheels program, we provide, with our kitchen produces about 1,500 meals a day. And that little kitchen on Royal Avenue.
Meals a day.
So those meals include meals for children, probably about 800 or 900 of them. Or maybe a little greater, maybe closer to 1,000 for children, and then another 500, just 500 to 700 for seniors, because we provide meals for the congregate site at the Peggy Seeger Center here in town, but also at a congregate site in Mount Olive, where seniors can gather and get good information and fellowship and have a nutritious meal, because we know that food insecurity is huge for senior citizens in our community. And then, of course, we do the Meals on Wheels. We go out and do warm, hot meals for seniors, and that requires a lot of volunteers. So our community really steps up to make sure we're able to get those meals delivered.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. So you need volunteers for that all the time.
Yes.
How many volunteers does it take to? Because you guys do this every day.
Every day.
So how many volunteers does it take to execute that program daily, and then? I guess, we'll start there.
Well, we have routes. And so before COVID, we were one of the few programs in the state of North Carolina to still do home delivered meals, warm meals, hot meals every day, 5 days a week. And then when COVID happened, we had to make some adjustments because out of safety and security concerns, not only for those that receive the meals, but for our volunteers, because many of them are senior citizens too. And so that impacted it. But so it requires hundreds of volunteers, to be honest, because the number of meals, even though they're set up in routes, because sometimes, certain groups take one day to do meals. Like certain churches may say every Monday they're going to do this certain route, or they may say every Wednesday. And so it takes a lot of volunteers to make it work. Hundreds of volunteers. Yeah,
because I don't remember. I mean, we did. I've done that before, and there's a lot of routes.
There's a lot of routes,
and it's kind of all over the county.
We serve the entire county with the routes.
And this is a big county.
It is a big county. The Boot is a big county.
Yeah.
So all the way from northern Wayne County all the way to the most southern ends, that's how we do it. And so all of those routes require volunteers.
Yeah, that's exciting and it's meaningful. I mean, it's a basic need.
It is.
And people, underestimate, I think, the amount of people who don't have regular access to meals.
Absolutely. And for us too, it's a sense of security and having a safety check. A lot of the seniors that we serve, they may have outlived a lot of their family members. Right. They may no longer have family members in this area. They may be out of the area. And so having that wellness check, I think, is important as well as the fact that we found that depending on self-report, a lot of seniors, probably about 15 to 25% of the seniors, this is the only meal they have a day, every day. And some, I really feel like sometimes it's higher because some of them count a piece of toast and coffee as a meal, and that's not a meal, right?
Sure.
And so it's very, very important, very important, addressing food security among our senior citizens and our children.
Yeah.
Everyone, actually. Yes.
And it's a commercial kitchen. Like it's a full kitchen.
It's a full commercial
kitchen. People really cooking. Real meals. They package them up. There's a whole system. I mean, it is a really, it's a powerful, big, deal.
Yes.
There's a lot happening.
And there's a registered dietitian that oversees the menus for both the seniors and the children. And so we are very fortunate to have that. That's a partnership with the health department.
Okay.
Their dietitian, particularly for the children's meals. And so all of it has to meet certain standards because it's not just a meal. It has to meet the daily nutritional requirement to make sure that it is, a good source of energy and nutrition for the children and for the seniors.
So that's so cool because I think, when people ask me now in the future, because when I think of wages, and we'll talk about this in a few minutes, I think, but when I think of wages, I tend to think of a lot of different things, but feeding people is not always the first thing. So now when someone asks me, I'm going to say, well, they help feed Wayne County because literally you're feeding Wayne County.
Yes.
That is wild and great. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for all the work that you do there. So you do that. You say you're going to get into housing. Explain that. What does that mean?
So we are already doing some things with housing because we have the weatherization program.
Okay.
And that is a program that makes sure that homes are energy efficient and that they are warm in the wintertime and cool in the summertime. And so that is a program that's funded through the Department of Energy and I pass through to the state of North Carolina Department of Environmental and Natural Resources, DENR. And so that program exists in Wayne, Wilson, Lenoir, Greene, and Pitt counties. So those five counties. And so we go in, the majority, probably about half of the homes that we go into are for older Americans. A lot of times seniors have worked really, really hard to be able to, buy a property. But then when it comes times for things like
maintenance,
HVAC units and things of that nature, they don't have the resources. Those things are very expensive. And also a lot of their income, which is fixed income for a lot of seniors, is really put into things like utility bills and things of that nature, because a lot of times the appliances or the homes may not be energy efficient. So we're trying to make sure that we ease the energy burden, which means the utility bills go down by doing things like making sure there's appliances in that meet the guidelines and they're energy efficient. Looking at HVAC systems to make sure that they are safe, but also provide the source of heat or air that is recommended or needed, and all those things. And so that is what we've been doing with we also have a healthy home programs as a part of that weatherization program that actually goes in and removes barriers to people's homes being healthy, like wheelchair ramps and septic units and all those things. That is a separate and apart from the Department of Energy contract that was funded by Blue Cross Blue Shield. And so now we are getting ready. We saw a need as a part of our community assessment and in our day-to-day work with the fact that, as I'm sure there's not, to my knowledge, unless it's just recently been added, a lot of options for single parents with children who are experiencing housing instability or who are unhoused, otherwise called homeless, here in Wayne County. And so we see it a lot with some of the families that we serve through our child development programs, because we run Head Start, early Head Start, as well as private child care with families struggling, and particularly single moms or single fathers who are facing housing instability. And so our board just voted a couple of weeks ago, actually, It's not even really been published or publicized that we are going to be using some of our own agency funds to invest in homes in Goldsboro and Mount Olive for those who are facing housing instability and housing insecurity, particular single parents with children.
So the creation of homes or the
purchase of homes.
I got you.
And that we will be using as temporary or transitional housing for single parents with children.
Outstanding.
Because it's a huge need. And so we wanted to make sure that we address that, but it won't just be the housing need that will be met. There's other things that we have the capacity to do, like, of course, we'll be addressing food security.
Right.
We'll be addressing child care because we run, Head Start as well as private child care, workforce development, budgeting.
Yeah, you've already got all those wraparound services already. So, I mean, it does make sense.
Including mental health services because we have licensed clinical social workers on staff too. So we're very excited about that and helping to meet that need because we are seeing that a lot. And we know that definitely impacts a child's growth and development, being able to be in a house or in a home versus, right now for a lot of the families, the transition or temporary housing is hotels or motels.
Right.
And we have seen that a lot and have, had to place folk in those because it was not safe for them to be in the car or wherever they were with children. But we find that this will be a model that we will be developing that will be sustainable, but also that will be able to provide that temporary support for those families with young children.
And perhaps even take some underutilized properties, I would guess.
Absolutely.
And put them into better use.
Absolutely. And that's a great thing too, because with our weatherization program, we are fortunate, and with our maintenance department, we are fortunate that we have a licensed general contractor on staff.
Right,
and we've got a weatherization department made up of all construction crew and electricians and HVAC certified folks.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we're able to do that. So we're happy and excited to be able to do that, to be able to utilize our capacity.
Well, and I was in a conversation several years ago with Self-Help Credit Union.
Yes.
I know you're familiar with those folks out of Durham, and they do great work. And we had gone to Durham because when I worked for the city, and we started being introduced to this housing issue in a more, well, at least for me, I was being introduced in a way that I had not before. And Self-Help Credit Union is, for folks who don't know, it's a CDFI, which is basically a nonprofit bank.
Sure.
That helps fund things that a traditional bank may not get involved in, or they just have different ways to capitalize things. So they had done quite a bit of work in Durham in terms of housing and food and some other things. And when we were talking about Goldsboro, they had been here before.
Yes.
But they had not succeeded. Their properties that they had gotten involved with had not succeeded. And I was like, well, take me through why that is the case. And they said, well, a couple of reasons. Number one, there wasn't enough prepared home buyers.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they were, if it was going to be home ownership, for affordable home ownership, subsidized home ownership, the folks who meet the criteria are not ready from a loan acceptance standpoint, and they couldn't get people qualified.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons they said they couldn't get people qualified was the bigger issue in Wayne County, and why this matters so much, I think, is because they did not have credible CHODOs. They did not have credible nonprofit organizations in the community who had the capacity to deliver on these products and had the reach throughout the community to try to get people advanced and qualified and ready for home ownership, and then supported after home ownership.
Yes.
And I was like, I just took for granted that existed, but in rural North Carolina, in rural Eastern North Carolina, and in the county we live in and the city we live in, there was a huge deficit of people delivering that service.
Yes.
Not that there's not people delivering it, but that there was not enough people delivering it.
And at that time, we were not. I mean, certainly I know that we qualify to be a CHODO now, but I think that we were qualified at a point, but I don't think that was the direction wages was going in at that time.
Sure.
And so I think, and that was prior to my tenure in this role, but certainly we're looking at all the opportunities that we can use to support Wayne County as our main county, but also the surrounding counties that we serve as well. And so you're right. I think that when we look at it from a comprehensive perspective, there's going to need to be some more time and attention paid to that.
Yeah, that is so cool. So how big does your staff have to be able to pull all of this off that you do? I mean,
so our staff is between 250 to 300 fully staffed. So I think around 270.
That's a lot of people.
It is a lot of people.
I can't even manage me. You're managing 270 people. That is crazy. What's the hardest part of that?
You know what?
Sport Durst Volkswagen Mazda of Goldsboro is proud to support Wayne County Chamber of Commerce. Family owned and operated, Sport Durst knows the importance of keeping local money local and supporting the community. We put our customers first with the area's best pricing, best trade-in value, and best selection of new and pre-owned vehicles. Come experience the Sport Durst difference, where customers and community come first.
I love what I do, and I love that. I think the hardest part is just wanting to make sure that everybody's needs are met, right? So I know that, we've got great supervision, great leaders that really hold together all those departments, because we run 12 or 13 different programs. And as I mentioned, 6 or 7 counties. And so it's just important that I want to make sure that the staff have the tools that they need to be successful, right? We know that they have. Hopefully they come in to us with the passion and the concern and the care, but then also making sure they have all the other tools that they need as well. Yeah. And then, we're working with multi-generational staff, as you can imagine, in multiple counties. And so it can be very interesting and very fun.
I like that. I like how you say that with a smile,
Very interesting and very fun.
Very interesting and very fun. I'm going to tell myself that too.
Yes, but the main thing is that we all, I believe, the goal is that we all fly in formation as we, serve the community, because that's what we're there for.
That's right. End of the day, it's the same mission.
Yes.
That's good. That's good. And I would imagine that you're gravitating people who, like you said, care. And so they're bound to the mission first.
Yes.
And I think it's always fun to work. It's a great culture, I think, to work in places where people are aligned on that mission.
Yeah, we are definitely mission driven.
That's right.
Definitely mission driven.
That's good. All right. So partnerships, I think I would imagine, and I could be wrong, but I would imagine that an organization like yours, to pull off what you're pulling off, is more than even your staff. It's partnerships.
Yes.
So take us through what that looks like, because a lot of times when people say partnerships, they mean kumbaya. We like each other.
Yes.
And we shake hands and we're partners. I would think it's a little bit more to it than that.
It's way more than that.
Yeah.
Right?
Can you explain that to us?
Yeah. And because, we know that there's no one entity, no matter how big you are. And certainly we know that we're the largest. They can do everything in any community, right? It takes all of us together working collaboratively and cooperatively to make it happen. So true partnership, a lot of times involves, memorandums of understanding, either informal or formal, right? So we know what our role is in this partnership. Right. You know what your role is in the partnership. And so that's a great way to make it happen. So we pretty much partner with, every human service agency that we have, certainly here in Wayne County, and in the surrounding counties that we work with too. But we have very strong partnerships for everything from, services on aging to the community college, the school system, DSS. We have strong partnerships, I think, with everybody who's aligned with doing the type of work that we're doing in collaboration and in partnership for the community.
Mm-hmm. And I guess what about the county and the city?
The county, the city. It goes on. I mean, yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. The municipalities, business. I mean, we have a lot of strong partnerships with a lot of different entities in Wayne County because, again, we're mission driven, and it's about the mission, making sure that we provide economic security and economic self-sufficiency to those who have experienced poverty or any kind of adversity.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's dive a little deeper in the this poverty issue,
yes.
can we? It's complicated.
It is.
And we're not going to solve it in our conversation today or anything, but I'm trying to help all of us understand it better because the word is used a lot. It's become, unfortunately, political.
Yes.
But our understanding of that really impacts, I think, some of these other things that we want to talk about, like childcare.
Sure.
So when we say poverty, can we agree upon a definition? What is the definition of poverty from wages or from your standpoint?
Well, I think there's a lot of definitions of what a poverty is and what economic instability is. But what I can say is, for example, just looking at the federal guidelines for what the federal poverty guidelines are, a family of four makes a little less than $28,000 a year for a family of four. That's how you arrive at the poverty stats for what we have here. So that means when you look at that, that seems like a very small amount of money for a family of four. And so anybody that meets that threshold is considered to be living, or under that threshold is considered to be living in poverty.
Right. So, so there's an official designation. You know, most people wouldn't know that, but there's an official designation for what that means. So in Wayne County, that number is high.
It is.
Comparatively.
Comparative to the state average.
So what is that number? Do we know it right off?
Well, I can tell you the number that about 1 in 4 children in Wayne County are experiencing poverty based on the federal poverty guidelines. But when you broaden that out, because that is so narrow, right? 28,000 is very, very small because there's something called that standard, but also the living wage standard, which, is separate and apart from that. When you look at the state median income, the county median income, all those other things, a lot of times people look at that as an indicator of poverty as well. So for children, in Wayne County, I think about 20% of the population is in poverty, but for children, that number is high. It's higher, as I mentioned before, it's 25%. But when you say children that live in homes where without economic stability and that fluctuate in and out of that federal poverty guideline or the state median income or any kind of indicator that is less than what the typical is, that is more than 50%. And so looking at that, and we talked about that, I think, the other weekend at the lunch. When you look at those numbers, that's the difference between what it says, a lower income household and a income and a household in poverty. There is a difference. But poverty is poverty nonetheless.
Well, and I think, anybody who's listening to this, all they have to do is just look at their own lives.
Yes.
And they'll know what these numbers mean.
Yes.
I mean, if somebody's making double that, $56,000 for a family of four, they are still very poor.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know what house they're able to live in. I don't know I don't know that they could afford childcare, which we'll get to. I mean, there's a lot of things that they can't afford.
Yes, especially when we were just talking about part of what our board looked at in looking at the housing issue is the fact that the market rate coming from North Carolina Housing Coalition for rent in Wayne County is, if I'm not mistaken, I think $918 a month.
Oh,
something like that. And for me, that was very surprising.
Well, and if you just be anybody, go right now to Wayne County, try to find a rental unit. Just try to find one available.
Yes.
All right. There's not going to be almost anything.
Yes.
And then there's going to be some houses that are available. And you're going to pay right now, and I know this because I've looked, between about $1,400 and about $2,500 a month.
Yes.
For rent.
Yes. Yes.
That is crazy.
Yes.
I mean, almost anybody.
Yes.
That would be expensive for.
Absolutely.
That's almost everybody in Wayne County.
Yes.
Except for maybe the top 10%.
Yes.
Perhaps even less than the top 10%, where $1,500 a month is a lot of money.
Yes. And the housing burden is like 30 to 31% here in Wayne County. Huge. So
housing burden, just define what that means.
That means that, what your burden on your total income of housing would be. And we all know that for most of us, your mortgage or your rent is going to be your biggest expense anyway. And so there's so many people, when you look at those poverty guidelines or the median income guidelines, and you just mentioned, I talked about the fair market rate being $918, but you're right. That is an average. Think about, for the most part, to find something that might be acceptable for most is going to be much more than that. And if you are living off of $28,000 or $56,000 for a family of four, that's going to be very difficult.
Very difficult. I mean, because you can be making $100,000 and it's still going to be difficult.
That's right.
And so that is wild. So childcare, something that's near and dear to my heart, and I think the heart, at least Chamber of Commerce, and to a lot of people, of course. But
yes,
and that's very impressive about what you do is childcare. Something that has dawned on us. I don't know why just now, but maybe seeing at the macro level some of these results of kids not being ready for school and kids just continuing to fall behind. The outcomes of that are so substantial that it's hard to kind of quantify. So my understanding, you talk with Miss Valerie Wallace at the Partnership for Children, and she'll tell you that they can only account for about half of the kids in Wayne County being in any
regulated child care.
Yeah. Is that true?
Yeah. I think that is about right. And that is because, a lot of families are relegated because they can't afford child care. So sometimes children may be with a relative, or sometimes there's communities where your children, groups of children, the families may go out to work and they're watched by one person in the neighborhood, multiple children, and not in a regulated situation. And so, I think really one thing that COVID really shined a light on was the fact that childcare is necessary in order for us to have a vibrant workforce. Most of us, or many of the people in the workforce, have children who are at the age where they need care if the families are not there. So either in school or, after school care, before, after, and certainly birth to 5, it is going to be child care or early education services.
Well, and as I like to talk about it, hey, it's an existing workforce problem.
Yes.
And it's a future workforce problem.
It is.
It's an existing workforce problem because the folks who need to go to work can't because of the instability of the situation that we're in. It's that dire.
Yes.
So I would imagine that every workforce of any size already knows this to be true. Whether they've thought about it long and hard, they know that childcare is a huge problem to their own, to the stability of their own workforce. But it's a future workforce problem because if those kids cannot read at 3rd grade level, by the time they're in 3rd grade, we got real problems.
Yes, absolutely.
It's science.
Yes, it's going to be our workforce development. When you look at, as you mentioned, not being able to read, and we know that right now, the last indicators were 36% children who left, only 36% of children who left 3rd grade here in Wayne County were able to read at a 3rd grade level.
Hold on. You got to stop there. You said that was such a smile. Say that again, because I think people need to hear that.
The latest stats that we have and that were shown as part of the
that was 2021, is that right?
Yes, for Wayne County. And we know that COVID impacted that. We were making some headway and substantial headway, I think.
Right.
But now, yes, the latest numbers are that only 36%, a little more than 1 in 3 children in Wayne County who leave 3rd grade can read at 3rd grade level.
It's heartbreaking.
It is.
It
is
wild.
heartbreaking.
That is a wild,
and you're right,
number.
It is a future workforce issue.
Yeah.
Because when you look at employability skills and ability to be able to, literacy skills, everything. And when you work, you have to be able to do those things. When you look at technology and all the things that come into being with a healthy workforce right now, those foundational skills are paramount to the success of not just that individual, but an entire community.
Which makes me think about how more vital wages is.
Yes.
Because if wages didn't exist, if tomorrow wages did not exist, this is what I always tell businesses.
Yeah.
I say, hey, I want you to imagine if you went away, would anybody notice? When we're trying to think about how they choose to partner or market or whatever they do in their business, to get them thinking about, how to attach. But if wages went away tomorrow, it would be a mess.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes, I would say so. There'd be a lot.
How many child care centers do you guys?
We operate 11 child care centers here in Wayne County. And most of those we provide Head Start and early Head Start, but we also have private child care. So there are families that can come to private child care through wages as well. And so not just that, when you look at that, all those, it's about 800 children that we serve every day. So those children would not have care. It's 500 plus seniors that we serve every day. So they would not have care. They would not have their issues related to food security addressed. It's homes that we weatherize throughout this region that would not be. So there's senior citizens that would not have heat. There are people that would continue to be unhoused because we provide that service. There are folk who would not be reaching economic self-sufficiency through our CSBG program, where we provide case management and help folk to go from living in poverty to rising above the poverty guidelines and maintaining that through education and workforce services. And so there's a lot of things that would not happen if we did not exist. Almost 300 people wouldn't have a job.
That's the truth.
And that's huge
There's
for this
a lot of
economy.
economic impact.
It is.
So
it is.
And I think it's also an argument for why we need good wages.
Yes.
That's the lowercase
the wages with the lowercase letters. That's right. Living wages.
Living wages.
Wages.
It's an argument for economic development.
It is.
For our people sometimes complain about the incentivizing industry or people who come in or create jobs. And I think, oh no, incentivize away, because what people need most is jobs that pay enough to allow them to afford to live.
Yes.
And have a life, and
we know that, historically, there are two ways that people have believed historically that folk can break the cycle of poverty. And that is through education and employment, right?
Yeah.
So when you begin at the very earliest stages, as we do with early education, and then that continues on, and then when you provide the workforce development services, and so even with the children who are enrolled in our Head Start, early Head Start program, their families are assigned social workers to help them reach economic self-sufficiency as well. So that's 800 any given day, but over 1,000 over a year, more than that, that we serve with. Those families are also in the course while their children are receiving early education services. Those families are able to get assistance with things like, completing their goals around education, employment, getting better jobs, resume writing, all those things, skill sets, finishing their education, whether it be a GED, high school diploma, associate's degree, whatever certifications, whatever 4-year degrees, whatever is necessary to help them to increase their economic self-sufficiency and increase the situation and enhance the situation for themselves and for their family. So it's really wraparound services. It's not just one service, because when they come for one service for us, there's multiple services that are attached to that.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I tell people all the time, if there was one place that I could spend money, prioritize, whatever, it'd be childcare. It would be the pre-K season of children's lives, because I think you solve, if you do that well, let's say we turn that liability into an asset, we would become one of the most attractive places to live.
Yes.
And we would have one of the most ready workforces eventually that exists. And the stability and reduction in poverty would decrease, I think, considerably. So if there was one problem I could solve, and there's a lot I'd like to see solved, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's that one. Yeah. And I appreciate the work that you all are doing on that so much.
Thank you. But back it up even before pre-K. Learning starts at birth.
Well, that's what I mean. I guess what I mean, when I say pre-K, I mean everything before kindergarten.
Yes.
I mean from the time,
from birth.
From the time, really from the time of conception.
Yes.
Helping mothers, helping families in that process all the way until that child reaches kindergarten. Because if they're ready for kindergarten, the likelihood of their success goes way up.
It is. And that is the biggest return on investment that we can do, is to invest in early education programs and childcare for the very youngest children. I even think about, we talk about, I was talking to someone the other day about the 3rd grade reading scores, and we're talking about, we're strategizing as a community and working really great together to look at, solutions for that. But I think about my own children and how they were, and myself. I mentioned that I went to Wages Head Start. I was reading before I went to kindergarten. My children read before they went to kindergarten. And I really believe that, we know that reading is so pivotal when you talk about, future success. And everybody, so certainly I don't expect everybody to go to read before kindergarten. I know that there's children that we have that leave us that can read. There are a lot that can't, but it does not mean, but they're well on their way. They have the foundation in place for success and for future success by having those pre-literacy skills, by having those literacy skills, by having exposure to books and language and all of those things is really, really a great indicator of how a child may be as they transition from childhood to adulthood by being able to have that exposure to literacy at a very, very early age.
So as a community, what can we do?
What
can we do together? I mean, what you're here to preach, give suggestions. What should we do to help?
I think that we have to peel back the layers of the onion. And I think as some of the conversations that we had a couple of weeks ago at the luncheon where we talked about with NC Child about the data and the stats is just looking at how we can work collaboratively, but looking at where we have the biggest issues of disparity, but also the biggest room to grow, right? So I always think that when I think about potential, I think about that we have the most because we have so far to come from. When we look at what the state rates are as relates to third grade reading scores, which are not phenomenal, by the way,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
It was still, I think, only 49%, only half. But certainly half is better than a third.
Yeah. But probably most of those stats are being weighted by the cities or by the, the larger areas with, great tax revenue.
Yeah.
They're able to, their schools, their child care, the wages, everything.
Yes.
I think Wake County and Mecklenburg County are probably lifting that number to be a little bit more inflated than it probably is in rural.
When you talk about the entire state.
I'm talking about the entire state.
Certainly you have that. You have the higher numbers that make up for the lower numbers. And as I always tell my friends on a lot of the, state boards and all these commissions and things I'm on, everything is not Raleigh and Durham and Charlotte, right?
That's right.
There's some of the rest of us who are operating and, under-resourced communities that may not have, the same opportunities.
That's right.
And so I just think, but with that, how can we capitalize on the opportunities and the resources that we do have and work together and, look at capacity to kind of strengthen that and realize, as was said even in that meeting, that these children belong to all of us. We can never have the flourishing community that we all want to see if more than half of the community is left behind.
And have a local solution.
Yes.
Like we don't have to wait for, the state or the federal government. And I'm not saying that that's wrong or bad.
Yes.
This is not a political statement.
Sure.
I'm just saying leave the politics out of it completely. Like you said, these are our kids. This is our community. We want everybody winning. Let's work on our own solutions. We don't have to wait for somebody else to give us permission to do what we're able to do.
Absolutely.
Within the means that we already have.
Exactly. We can work within the resources that we have.
That's right.
And see how we can maximize what we have to make sure. And again, like I said, peel back the onions and look at where, just like you mentioned before about you feel like the state numbers are inflated or maybe, maybe weighted based on certain communities. We know that our numbers are deflated, for lack of a better word, based on certain areas and certain communities. How can we pour into that and also still pour into the communities that are still thriving and still have those, that keep the numbers up? Because there is a lot of disparity that exists when you peel back those numbers and you look at, where the lowered scores are, which communities, which socioeconomic groups, which race and ethnicities and all those other things. So I think just taking a real deep dive into that and just saying, okay, how can we strategize? And we're doing some of that work, but how can we continue to make sure that we're doing it and keep plugging through? Again, we made a lot of, headway, but then the pandemic happened. How can we make sure that as much as possible, we don't expect another pandemic, number one, hopefully that doesn't happen again in any of our lifetimes, but even with whatever happens, because we're also in a hurricane prone area, right? Sure. So there's a lot of things that can come tip the apple cart. But if we have a strong foundation for all children, that means that when those things happen, because we know that they will, that we'll still be better prepared to be able to move forward together as a community.
So what's next? What's next for you personally? What's next for Wages? What's next?
I just think that I am super excited about the direction for Wages. Our board very engaged, very involved, very passionate board who really, supports the initiatives that we're trying to do. And I just think that there's no limit really to what can be done as we try to improve our community and work together with all the stakeholders in our community. And, that includes every part of the community to fulfill what I believe is the vision, not just for our organization, but anybody's vision for what you'd like to see as a flourishing, thriving community where we're all able to, to be healthy, to have safety and security, economic and financial, as well as otherwise. And so I don't know what the next 5 years is going to hold for wages. I don't know what it's going to hold for me, but I know that wages are going to continue to be here. And we are going to continue to move forward along with the rest of the community as we try to increase and enhance outcomes for everybody.
Outstanding. Well, Ms. Patricia, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.